us fully, I'd say like 90%. So when you cut us, people are gonna get laid off. So that's just how we're set up generally. I wanted to real quickly go through, back in, everybody talks about 2008. That was the greatest year ever for the highest employment numbers, the highest whatever. I know we broke that record at this point, but with inflation or whatever. In 2008, we had 229 examiners out in all 67 counties. When I took over in 2018, we had 121. So that went from 229 to 121. And so we were 100 examiners down in all 67 counties, plus being staffed here in Montgomery for state government and for you for like sunset reviews and things like that. Y'all have heard me talk ad nauseum about it's not about money. I don't need more money. I need to find the bodies. Accountants are few and far between. And if you would have asked me a year ago, we went through some times where every day I just banged my head against the desk with our HR director on what we were going to do because we could not find accountants. I am extremely happy to say we have now hired to where we need to be. That is not to the 229 number of 2008, because when I did an analysis, that's not what we needed. That was an extra 100, and I thought, looking through all of our audits, we only needed 60. So we have self-cut ourselves and are still gonna be able to catch up and get everything done. So we are now to the point where we have reached that goal, which has taken us since 2018 to get there. We were well on our way, and then, after COVID, everybody wanted to reevaluate their lives and try new jobs. So we went down, but now we're back there, and so we're really, really excited about that, and that opens up a lot of opportunities. Do you have a question? I'm sorry. With having the resources we need. With that, our audits have increased about 300 years of auditing per year. We're on track to having somewhere around 1,200 audit years released this year. That's a big deal. Some of you have heard me say this, we're over in jurisdiction over 1,100 entities in the state of Alabama. That is no small feat. I try not to say that number a ton because it'll get you a little overwhelmed. But I want you to know the progress is starting to roll, and we're starting to really, really see the fruits of having all these resources available to us. And like I said, not 2008 numbers, because we reevaluated and we got what we thought we needed. Not necessarily, you'll hear people say, I want to get to 2008. Just because 2008 was the scene, that might not be where you need to be. And I encourage other agencies to look and evaluate that also. Something else that I told y'all about last year, we created a new class of examiners. Used to, only accountants could work in our department. We've created a new class, and a lot of them work on sunsets. If you have a finance background, economics background, any kind of legal background, those individuals can be hired into this new class of a compliance examiner. You do not have to be an accountant, because our department, really, a lot of what we do is legal interpretation. And so we've hired about 15 or 20 of those, and they have been amazing. You can't tell the difference between them and accountant. There's a lot of people that don't get accounting degrees that are very financially savvy, and then couple that with some of these other degrees, it has helped our department tremendously. One of the things we did this past year also, because you all might have heard this some too, hey, why don't y'all hire some private CPA firms to help y'all out when we were down? Or why don't we let some private CPA firms do some of these audits? And I said, I want to be open to any suggestions. So I did a pilot program with some of our boards of education, and I did hire some of the bigger CPA firms that responded to our RFP. A couple things that I did learn with that. One, it was extremely expensive, extremely. I think we got 6 or 7 audits out of it for $1 million. And so that kind of, I wasn't real happy about that. Plus the fact that they still didn't meet the federal deadlines, of June 30th in some instances. So when they came back to me and said, we're not gonna be able to meet this deadline, I said, well, see what we've been dealing with. Because you can't meet the deadlines if the auditee isn't giving you the information you need. So they started to realize kind of the world that we've been living in with that. So we're gonna do it again. It was a 2-year contract. We're doing it again this year. And then after that, we're gonna have to reevaluate that. I don't think, especially getting resources back where we need them, I don't think we'll probably do that again. Something else you all did, and I'm sorry I'm talking so fast, I just really wanna be respectful of your time. You put a new position at our department to assist, the prison oversight committee with, members of the legislature. And one of our lawyers, Laura Ness, has taken on that position and has done an incredible job. She has background at Parks and Paroles and knows the correction system really, really well as knowing our department really well. So she has been a great asset to that committee. This summer also, we had what's called our peer review. That's where all the other state audit agencies come in and look at how we do our audits and then evaluate us on that. And we passed with flying colors. It's a very rigorous, exhausting 3 weeks to deal with. But we passed, and so we'll be good for another 3 years. That is very important. If we did not pass that, we would not be able to conduct any of these audits that we do for the federal government. And that would be obviously a huge issue. One of the things I'm most proud about, and y'all would understand this, is our department and LSA has really, really started collaborating a whole lot together. You know, Otney and I have an extremely, extremely good relationship. And why that's important is when you are writing a piece of legislation to fix one of, especially a local issue, and Lord forbid if it's a salary one, those are very convoluted and very difficult to draft. And we have now worked out where we help draft those because we're the ones on the back ends out at the county commissions, out at the sheriff's office, and making sure they're implementing them correctly, and it just wasn't meshing. So Otney and I decided we'd start doing this, and Jason Paulk, who's my general counsel, he reviews every local salary issue. Have y'all ever heard of Omnibus? It is the biggest mess ever. It's a great thing, but it's very, very difficult. So that helps you in a tremendous way because if we're involved and then we're going in on the back end, then they're not gonna be running back to you unless they want a raise, because that could happen still too. They're not gonna run around back into you over and over to keep getting you fixed local issues, which we hear that a lot from members. If you see me running around on the floor, that's generally what I'm talking to members about, is a salary local bill issue. So I'm very, very proud of what Otney and I have done with regard to that. We have a really good relationship to be able to kind of bounce things off of each other. Because what we don't want to happen is y'all pass a bill and then we go out and implement it and it be all messed up. So we've really kind of done that. Y'all know since I took over in 2018, one of my big things was getting everything back on time with the state financial audit with the comptroller's office, which includes all the state and federal money. Those have been on time since 2019. That was very behind before then, and we keep those on time now, which the finance department is very happy about, especially with all the federal money flowing in and the COVID money right now. With that being said, anybody that knows me knows that I'm not sunshine and rainbows. It's not my personality. I'm very direct. I want you to know the problems. And so we're finished talking about the good things. And I want to tell you real quickly some of the issues we're encountering over the next year and how I'm looking forward to try to fix those issues. The legislature has given me more and more authority over municipalities. With that being said, we do not audit regularly a municipality, but that's 472 extra entities. And we we have been overwhelmed with the amount of questions, complaints, investigations with municipalities. Because as you can imagine, we have our Birmingham, and then we have some municipalities or some towns that are really only in existence for like a festival once a year. We have that happening in the state of Alabama. So there are issues rampant through the state on that. I am this next year gonna try to hire what's called a municipal audit coordinator. I've been doing that, but that kind of takes away from me being able to run the department. I've kind of been down in the weeds with that a little bit. And what we're gonna do is try to get all municipalities complying with the Municipal Audit Act, and codes and fines if they're not, things like that. We won't do that immediately. We try to be careful and do corrective action plans and understand where people are. But that's gonna be something that we take on, over the next year. If we can get that, it will be a long process. I want everybody to know that, and I don't expect full compliance at all. But it is one of the biggest issues and complaints we get. I heard someone speaking day before yesterday about, municipalities and doing a public records request. On Fridays, I can't tell you how much of my day is spent mediating about public records requests and telling municipalities, not just municipalities, but a lot of them, no, you got to give that person that. I try to do that and try to facilitate that. When it really gets to me is when it's a mayor not wanting to give a councilman some documents that are obviously public records. You shouldn't have to do a public records request for that, and it's a little ridiculous, but that's what we deal with on Fridays here in session. Not in session, we deal with that every day. We're also having an issue with the number of individuals getting CPA certificates. You know that's the issue, Representative Underwood. And we're trying to figure out ways to incentivize that. I do like to have a good number of CPAs at the office. I think it helps tremendously in the way people look at us and respect us. And we're having a problem with that. I have talked to personnel about that and trying to figure out a way to help incentivize people to do that. With that being said, the biggest issue that we are having is, we can fix us all day long and get us to the right amount of numbers to do all the audits we need to do. What we are finding in the state of Alabama, and this is, I talk to Sonny Brasfield about this all the time. I talk to Andy Craig with ASBO about this all the time. At the entity level, like your Board of Education, or your county commission, or your sheriff's office, or your DA's office, we are seeing more and more lack of experience in bookkeeping and accounting, and that is causing huge problems. And we're not having the ability to go in and audit because we don't have good books. And so that's something that I would like to talk to the legislature as a whole about thinking of ways to kind of incentivize entities to push more for that. When you go in and you have bad books, that causes problems for us. And I'm not a gotcha kind of person. I'd love if there were no findings. I mean, no reason to have findings. We have findings because I'm not gonna let somebody go with things, but it makes our lives easier. It makes everybody's lives easier if they're doing right and there are no findings. Plus, at the end of the day, that means we're doing our job, that everything's working the way it's supposed to be. So that is one big key issue that we're gonna have to work through in the next year. With that being said, that's a real quick overview of what we've done in the past year. If you ask me what I did today, it'd be hard. I'm sure some of y'all feel that way too. If somebody says, "What'd you do today?" It's really hard to explain what you did today, but you were extremely busy all day long. That's how I feel on most days. So I'm open for questions, comments, or whatever at this point.
I just want to tell you and the staff, you know, I'm on this committee, I'm on Sunset, and I'm on contract review. So I want to tell you what an incredible job I think y'all are doing. I think Carrie Underwood, I know the Sunset Review Committee, we read what you give us, and we appreciate all the work that goes into it, and contract review. We read those contracts, and all the information you give us is greatly appreciated. Don't think it doesn't go unnoticed. So I want y'all to know how much we appreciate it. Y'all do an excellent job. You said something about people not getting stuff to you in a timely manner. I know that when we rewrote the section of the code, there's a penalty, a financial penalty, if they don't give you the financial information. And if they lie to one of your staffers, it's lying to you and it's a felony. Have we used that?
I have, used that twice. What I try to do is not write a letter and say you immediately owe me this amount of money. What I try to do is say, here, you're fixing to owe me this amount of money, write me a corrective action plan of what you're gonna do to get somewhere, because you can't expect them to do it like that. And, in that instance, it happened. Here's the issue. I don't have any enforcement once I do that. So, I don't really throw it out there a ton, so that might be something we need to look at. I can charge them personally, and then if they say, go fly a kite, I'm like, okay, I could turn it over to the AG's office for $1,000. That's where I've always gone in my brain, a couple steps down. So maybe we need to look at putting some sort of enforcement mechanism for me on that.
I was gonna ditto, appreciate what you do, especially, my focus is all the agencies, the state agencies, and I just appreciate the order that you do, provide for us. I just thank you very much. You've been doing that, what, about 20, 30 years, you done a good job. So I just wanted to tell you that, thank you very much.
And I've been with y'all.
And to y'all too.
Part of going out into our districts and people asking us about efficiency and transparency, that comes through you and your staff, and especially on Sunset contract reviews. And, people talk about DOGE and everything else at the federal government, and I've said in the past, y'all are kind of the original DOGE for the state of Alabama, and people appreciate that. We want you to have findings because we want to make sure we stay in line, and people have force blinders on because being a city councilman, now a senator, people can get off base real quick with spending money and where they're doing, and so by y'all keeping those force blinders on, we do that. And I just want to say thank you for all that you do, because sometimes that's a tough job to tell people, hey, bring this back in, you gotta pay this money back. But that's a big deal for us being able to go out into our district and say, we have people looking at this. And so thank y'all for all of that, and I appreciate that accessibility that y'all give us when we need something in a timely manner. We really appreciate that.
Yeah, and one thing, I don't know if you ever noticed, first of all, our office does not do PR. I do not do PR. If a reporter calls me to come in on an audit, I will not. My general thing that I say is I just want the taxpayers to know that we are out there and we are behind the scenes. And almost every article you see coming out where an official or someone like that is getting in trouble, we're back there. But I'm not waving my hand saying, it was us. But I always think it's important that they know that y'all have this in place, that is happening behind the scenes.
Mr. Chairman, I have to run to a local meeting, but I just want to concur with everybody's positive statements.
Let me say too, that I agree with what everybody said. I mean, I've been with this community for a while, and I've seen both sides of it, and to see what you're doing with this department, you're to be commended. I really think, with your staff, I don't think you're taking enough credit, and I agree with Senator Smith. He's seen it, he knows what I'm talking about, so I just want to tell you, how much I appreciate it, and how much I appreciate the working relationship that you have with the legislative body. It's incredible, and I know you've been in my office a few times when we've had issues, and we've looked at clearing them up, and you've done a great job, so thank you for that. Does anybody got any other business? All right, I hear a motion adjourned.
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Thank you.
Good job, guys. No. Thank you.